actually records audio, so I can chat while you're driving.
Yeah, go on.
So yeah, folks, we're going for another drive into Brisbane City this time. So we're coming out of Harwood Street into Coloma Road, and you're looking at the leafy suburb of the Gap on a Sunday afternoon, which is my husband's 50th birthday. So we're going for a celebratory birthday lunch at the Sofitel Hotel in Brisbane, which is a very nice hotel. And I'll point out any geological and geographical features along the way. That mountain that you can see in front of you is Mount Cootha. It's part of the Enoggera granite. They quarry hornfells up there, and hornfells are the rocks produced when you get an intrusion of magma into the bedrock, and the contact between the magma and the bedrock, basically you get burnt rocks. There's hornfells, and they quarry those and they use them in various building things around the place. So about 220 million years ago, due to crustal extension and relaxation following a long period of subduction, you had a lot of volcanic activity here in Brisbane, and it was pretty violent, to be quite honest. The dinosaurs would not have had a happy time of it. You can see actually examples of the Enoggera granite in various walls and retaining walls here around the Gap. So Mount Cootha is the southernmost part of the Taylor Range, which also creeps around the Gap in a crab-like fashion. There's only one gap, and that's pretty much what we're driving through. Hence why it's called the Gap, and we're on Waterworks Road. It's a nice Sunday afternoon, a few clouds about, but nothing dramatic. So this is your typical.
God, very old.
Yeah.
Old, no, that's a mini, the original Mini Cooper.
So this is, yeah, quite interesting, isn't it? Let's talk about cars as well, why don't we? This is just me and my 50-year-old husband just chatting on the way to our lunch date in the city with Mark's mum. At the birthday celebration, she's shouting at lunch. This is, so if you can see any walls, they're on the rock of the they're made of granite. Enoggera granite. Enoggera granite has a few different colours actually, because there was more than one period where the magma was trying to intrude. old Ash Grove quarry, which is a Niagara granite. Stop sniggering.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have traffic lights here.
Yeah, we are civilised, Mark. Well, actually, where Nick broadcasts from in Ellensburg would have been the Wild Wild West at one point. So this was never the Wild Wild West.
No.
Brisbane used to be a penal colony, an offshoot of the New South Wales penal colony. It's because the free settlers in New South Wales didn't want to deal with convicts anymore, and so they said the worst one's up here. And I tell you what, the Brisbane penal colony, well, they didn't call it Brisbane penal colony. It was actually the Moreton Bay penal colony, called Moreton Bay because that's the name of the bay. Although, I mean, technically it's divided up to a few different bays, like Bramble Bay and stuff, but Moreton Bay is the main bay. See, originally, and what's funny was this part of Brisbane wasn't known at the time when they decided to build a penal colony up here. There's a really funny story about that, because several explorers had sailed into Moreton Bay, but had failed to find the mouth of the Brisbane River, although they figured there was one. But yeah, it blithely sailed past the Brisbane River. So actually the first settlement point in Brisbane, or Moreton Bay penal colony, was actually at Redcliffe, known because of the Red Cliffs, which form part of the Petrie Formation, which also is part of the islands of Moreton Bay, and also the Redlands, Cleveland and that. And the Petrie Formation is basalt from an old volcano or fissure, as part of the hotspot story, when the hotspot was under southeast Queensland 20 to 30 million years ago. So the basalt has weathered to a red soil, and that's how you get the red cliffs. So the first settlement was at Redcliffe, and the way the Brisbane River was discovered, and actually this is quite indicative of how rivers on the east coast of Australia were discovered, and that's by accident, and also by inland explorers, rather than finding the mouth of the river. Rather than finding the mouth of the river from the coast, they're actually found by inland explorers. So what happened was you had some convicts who had been freed, and they were going to sail south from Sydney to Illawarra, and they got blown off course by a storm. Now they thought that they had been blown south, when in fact they had been blown 1,000 kilometres north. So thinking they still had to go south, they went north and happened upon the Brisbane River that way. And they managed to sail up, they managed to get up as far along the river as where Oxley Creek is now. And they pinched a canoe, which had been left by the Aborigines there, and managed to sail down the river. And then I think John Oxley came along, and he was doing some exploratory work, and I think he came to Moreton Island, and there was an Aborigine there that was very light-skinned and, funnily enough, spoke English. So it turned out that these four men, and by that stage were three men, because one of them had died, because when they were blown off course by the storm, they ran out of water, so one bloke died. And and he told them that, yeah, I've discovered a river. And so they sailed up the river, crust fault soon, and we'd be going into a different rock bed. So your bunya phyllite is from ocean floor, accreted and also uplifted because of the subduction zone story. When you've got one plate sliding under another, bits of ocean plate get bits of the ocean plate get accreted onto the land plate. They get sort of squished on, and any islands and island arcs that may be around at that time. So we're about to go over the Normanby Fault, and at this point we're going into a slightly different type of rock bed called the Naranli Fernvale bed. Slightly different composition to the bunya phyllite. You do have some sort of squashed salt. So as well as being uplifted, so as well as being accreted through the subduction story, you also had a lot of folding and stuff to produce quite tortuous rocks. I don't know if you can see on the right there. But we're just about to go over the fault, and I'll tell you when we're about to go over the fault. So on your right, and you can't see it, is St Bridget's Church, but we're just about to go over the fault right now. You have just gone over the Normanby Fault, and you can see at the front, that's the Brisbane CBD, the Central Business District. So we live very close to the Central Business District here in the Gap. So we're in the Naranli Fernvale beds. Now Naranli comes from two words, so it's actually it comes from three. From the town of Naranwood, the suburb of Beenleigh, they're both south of Brisbane, and the country town of Fernvale, which is not far from the Wivenhoe Dam. So what's interesting is that you have the Naranli Fernvale beds sort of between the city and East Brisbane, and then from the Normanby Fault to, well, what you could call the Kenmore Fault, but they don't reckon it exists, and that's your bunya phyllite. And then from sort of up Mount Nebo way, you're back into your Naranli Fernvale beds, and then you have your Esk Trough and various volcanic activity. I find that the rock beds are quite interesting. I've been playing with a wonderful interactive website that shows all the different beds, and actually what we are also coming into is Brisbane Tuff, which is a welded tuff from one or more volcanic eruptions 226 million years ago. Not quite sure where the volcano was that produced that. It was obviously a pretty nasty one, because the welded tuff, or ignimbrite, Latin for fiery shower, is pretty big, and it goes over a pretty long distance. So they thought the original volcano might have been up near Woodford, which is north of Caboolture, and runs through what they think is an old river valley, and you can see bits of it at Raby Bay, I think, or Redland Bay. Yeah, Raby Bay or Redland Bay, I think it goes as far as. And at first they thought it went even further than that, but it turned out that that welded tuff actually comes from the Chillingham volcanics, which is a bit further south, and is in the Numinbah Valley. What I find interesting about the Numinbah Valley is, along with your volcanic rocks from 220 million years ago, you also have volcanic rocks from 20 to 30 million years ago, which is part of the hotspot story. So you've got a couple of different volcanic stories And the other volcanic story, which is probably completely eroded away by now, although you might be able to see the ghost volcanoes, and I haven't quite worked out if the granite belt is related to those ghost volcanoes. But when the subduction story was happening, the coast of Queensland was actually much further west, so anything east of Dalby has either been accreted from the ocean floor or uplifted ocean floor, much like Washington, which Nick's been teaching us about. Go on, do it. Yep. Okay, we gotta try and find a park now. Alright, so we're in the city. Let's go. So you can go a bit further. Oh no, there's a right. Yeah. So this is the Sofitel. Section 11. Okay, folks. We're coming out of the city. And we're coming up to Red Hill. And there's a big church that you'll see. That's St. Bridget's Church. It's a Catholic church. And it sits right on the Normandy Fault, which is a thrust fault. And it's the boundary between, so you'll see the church there on the left. It's quite an impressive building. Right in the centre of your screen now. So on the left you'll see a cutting in the road. The church is made of brick, by the way, red brick. It's not very geologically exciting. But on the left, what you're seeing is the boundary between the Duranley Fernvale beds of Brisbane CBD and the eastern suburbs. Just gone over the fault now, and we're moving into the Bunya Rhyolite beds. So not sure how much you can see that from the dash cam, but if you can, I might zoom in here. You can see Mount Cootha. That's the sort of the southern edge of the Taylor Range, which is in itself an offshoot of the Daguerre Range. That looks like a Moreton Bay fig. Is that big tree a Moreton Bay fig, do you think?
Possible.
I have to find out.
Not too sure.
So it's a beautiful Sunday afternoon here. Sorry. Just wanted you to see more of the scenery and less of the cars. So you're looking on the left is but behind that you can see the Daguerre Range. Daguerre Range? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But yeah. Nothing very geologically exciting here. Red Hill's just part of the ridges that you see through Red Hill and Ashgrove. So yeah, we can get a good look now at Mount Cootha. I wonder actually if I move in here, you might see what I'm seeing. Do you see what I see? How's that for you, huh? Is that okay?
Yeah, I know that's even better.
That's better? We'll stick it in. I'll just stick it on the passenger side so that you can better see what I'm seeing.
Let me see.
Yes, you don't want either of us to sing. We do not have Ned Zinger's beautiful voice. Neither of us are cantors for the church choir. Although I used to have a lovely voice, and then I took up going to rugby league games. and lost it. So we're going to Ashgrove at the moment. Used to be a big settlement, actually, like one big sheep station or something, and then they subdivided it. On the left, you see Finbars, St Finbars Catholic Church. Just focus that up a bit more so that you see less of the road and more of the scenery. We don't want to run the orange light or red light on this particular set of lights because there are red light cameras everywhere. So, and you know you've been nabbed by the red light camera because there's an enormous flash. So nothing geologically interesting around here. And I'll probably cut this bit out because it's boring. Motorbike boy. And hear the people in the car behind us talking loudly. They must have their windows down. Or if they're talking really loudly and having a bit of a row.
No, that's the thing. No, they're not rowing, they're nice. There's some sort of amplification.
You'll want to get into the next lane. So that sort of mountain you're looking at, it's part of the Taylor Range. And actually it's part of the old quarry called Ashgrove Quarry. They used to mine for the Enoggera granite there. And it's at the back of the Dan Murphy's and Gap Tavern, and you can see actually the contact between the Enoggera granite and the Hornfells, which is basically just cooked big rock. It was magma under the ground, so obviously very hot, so it's naturally going to metamorphose the rock. Nebo and Mount Glorious. Mount Glorious is an old, got a lot of basalt from the hotspot story, but Mount Nebo is more of a subduction zone story. And on Mount Nebo you've got Jolly's Lookout, which is the coastal relaxation story after the subduction story was done. There's a bit of andesite there for an old volcano from 20 million years ago. So the Taylor Range extends a little bit into the western suburbs. Brisbane's actually quite hilly. Nightmare if you're a cyclist. Yeah, so that hill there is got a bit of granite. I can see the quarry up from here actually, but it's so yeah, you'll see some granite boulders sort of lining the road. You'll get a good sense of it actually if you have a look right now. See that retaining wall? That's all Enoggera granite. stops when you stop.
Oh.
Hang on. No, it's still going. It senses movement, you see. It eventually comes into Breakfast Creek. Breakfast Creek so named because John Oxley named it as he was having breakfast there. And there's a very famous hotel there called the Breakfast Creek Hotel, the Brecky Creek as we call it. There's Australians shorten everything. They put a wire and O after it, and you can get a nice steak there. Actually, it's known for its steak. Although we have discovered a better steak called Walters. Although we had a very, very nice steak for Mark's birthday lunch. Wasn't it? It was a lovely steak. Steak and chips. Oh yeah. None of this fries, bizzo. No. Chips. And gravy. Yeah, chips. You guys do not know what you're missing with these thin fries. Steak, chips. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, if I look out my left window, I can see Mount Cootho, and it looks beautiful today. And you've got to realise that this land used to be a lot higher because it's all been eroded away, and the only reason that Mount Cootho hasn't been eroded away is it's part of the inaugural granite, and the inaugural granite is obviously a little bit harder than the surrounding bedrock was. Which is interesting because when we get into the Ranley Fernvale beds, and the reason Samford Valley came about is because there was another intrusion up there. It's just a little bit to the north of us, the Samford granodiorite, and but that Samford granodiorite wasn't quite as hard as the surrounding Ranley Fernvale bed, so it hollowed out a nice little valley. Thunderstorm. So you see parts of the Taylor Range, and this is all uplifted ocean sediment. A little bit of an over granite, I suppose. But you'll see some big boulders on the corner, close enough and you can see some nice sparkly bits. And we're home.